There's several types of side kicks. Side kick is probably the most powerful, or at least one of the most powerful kicks in Jeet Kune Do, depending on how you do it. There's different ways to throw the side kick. There's different principles behind some of the different ways we throw this, and I'm going to be explaining those. The first one is the full range, full power blasting side kick. Basically, it's just a distance side kick. And a lot of times when I show this to people, one of the first things they say is, well, how would you hit a guy from way over there? Because I'm going to start from a few paces away to kick the guy. There's two reasons for practicing this kick. One is that when you're fighting, in Jeet Kune Do it's really encouraged to knock the guy backwards and to shove him sometimes, to keep him off balance. If a guy stumbles back, it's a perfect setup for that kind of a following side kick. If you've seen the movie Return of the Dragon or Way of the Dragon, this is the one Bruce Lee does and knocks the guy into the boxes. And it's a great kick, very powerful. Then there's also what we call the water hose principle, where we're snapping the side kick. It doesn't look as devastating on a pad when somebody's holding it or on camera, but it actually is more painful because the shock is taken directly in the body and there is no pushing backwards when you hit the opponent. So we're going to start with the full range, and the way this particular kick is done, you'll notice that the footwork is a bit different than the way we've been doing the pendulum before. In most of the other kicks, when we pendulum up, there's just a basic turn in the air. But this particular kick, we're really going to load this front leg up when we step. And remember, loading just means to put a lot of weight, most of your weight on it, so that you can launch off of that leg. If I put my weight on my rear leg, it's going to be awful hard to launch off my lead leg, as you can tell. I'm going to step down on this, and I'm actually going to launch forward off of my lead foot, off of my lead leg. In the air, that is when the rear foot's going to kick through into this pendulum, and as I kick through, my kicking leg, my lead leg, will move over to the side in the position to set up the side kick. Okay, I'll do this kind of slow, see if you can see this. Step and kick. Now, you can't really tell how to do it in slow motion because my foot hits the ground when I do it slowly, just before my kicking foot hits the pad. In reality, when you hit, your kicking foot, your striking leg, should hit the target before your standing foot hits the ground. That ensures that your momentum is still moving forward. And so that's the whole point behind this step, is that the harder you launch yourself forward, if you do the kick timed properly, in other words, you kick fully extended before your standing foot hits the ground, just before, then your momentum will still be behind the kick, and it will come out right on the heel, which is where you're making contact with the pad. All that stuff, there's a lot of things to remember, but it's all very important. If you're kicking a shield, remember, don't line your foot up with the center of your foot in the center of the pad. Okay, because then you notice where my heel is. My heel is way over here. You want your heel to be in the center of the pad because your heel is what's lined up with your hip, and that's where the power comes from. If I hit with my foot centered, then my toes tend to take the brunt of the force. There's flexing, which means you've lost power. Anytime there's flexing. So once again, I'm going to take that step. As I launch into it, turn, and you notice the heel lands right in the center of the target. And you can usually hear a good pop when you hit with your heel, but if you hit with the flat of your foot or the toes, then you'll hear that it's not quite as much pop.